This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? There we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com, and we're broadcasting 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 3 o'clock from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Studio A. Information's on the website. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. For those of you who are new to the class, there are over 150 of us here at USAPrepares.com. We are dentists, medical doctors, engineers, surgeons, CEOs, broadcasters, researchers, physicists, farmers, inventors, innovators, and students rising to become instructors. Over the next few weeks, you're going to continue meeting more of us. Hardly any of us is capable of holding down a job. This is USAPrepares.com. Alex is producing the broadcast, the worldwide broadcast in Minnesota. And today, you're going to meet a new instructor. And Trend Micro's chief technologist for internet content security, Dave Rand, is going to be with us, and we're going to be discussing computer security from many levels. The threats are real. The stakes are high. How high? Computers control the nation's infrastructure, the power grid, nuclear reactors, air traffic, e-commerce, the internet. And without the internet, would you have a job or a profession? Possibly not. Let's learn about internet content security with an innovator in the computer security field, Dave Rand. Welcome, Dave Rand.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Dave. You know, rough night last night here in the Midwest. We had a heck of a storm. Tornadoes came through, and we've accounted for all of USAPrepares.com instructors except one, Mike Ma. I have not been able to contact him, and Joel Johnson is right there in Moore, Oklahoma. I mean, he's right there. He went through it. The tornadoes came through, and he's going to be on the air with us this afternoon. You haven't met him, but maybe soon you may get a chance to meet him. So let's talk about internet security. You are Trend Micro's chief technologist for internet content security. You're responsible for integrating internet protocol filtering and internet protocol reputation services. You know what we should do? Hey, why don't we start with some basic terminology and then ramp up to what we need to do about these threats. So for example, can we define spyware and malware and viruses so that we all know what we're going to be talking about?
Sure. It really comes down to a few different things, but starting off with the spyware and malware. Malware is software that you don't want on your computer. It might not be things you installed deliberately. It might be something that's truly malicious in nature, trying to extract information from you. And spyware is kind of a subcategory of that, where the software that is installed on your computer without your knowledge is looking at your activities and monitoring your behavior. Now, this is done on a number of different levels, and it need not be actually on your computer. There's malware that gets installed on routers. There's malware that gets installed in even fax machines and things like that. So it's a pretty broad spectrum.
Okay. So malware, we don't want it. And it's software that we should be concerned with. And I'm thinking, sometimes I have installed programs over the years applications, and attached to them are other applications that I didn't want. Now, I think something happened in the last few years where you can not install some of these applications by unchecking boxes. But prior to that, they seemed to hitch a ride along with applications that I did want to install. I guess things have gotten a little bit better where you can elect not to install some applications. So are we talking about applications that people are writing for nefarious purposes?
Sure, and what you're talking about specifically are things like toolbars and things that get bundled with other applications, and there's a lot of reasons for that, right? One of the reasons that companies choose to bundle toolbars is that they get a revenue share of the traffic that customer then generates. Unfortunately, these toolbars can also monitor your behavior, so they act in a way like spyware and often redirect your browser results so that, for example, if you're searching on a given site, they may give higher priority to certain searches depending on who you are and what else you've been looking at.
Interesting you say that, because yesterday I was at KWTO radio studio, and I was searching for a person's name, and I did a search, and his name came up number one in association with me and USA Prepares. I did a search again, and it came up on the second page. So the same search resulted in two different displays of ranking of this particular person's name. Is that tied to the first search that I did, a moment before, or why is it like that?
Not likely. The search results are not updated that real time. So likely what you saw was an example of a local browser extension or toolbar that was helping you. And I use that term loosely.
Yeah. Okay. So should we avoid installing toolbars?
In general, yes. Toolbars are not needed. Now, there are some toolbars that people enjoy and that give them additional features. That's a personal choice. But understand that they are collecting your information and they are changing the way your browser was meant to work. Sometimes for the good, but most often for the bad.
I remember several months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I was looking for a very specific tool, a Milwaukee 18-volt cordless drill, hammer drill, screwdriver, a quality tool. And I did a search on it. The next thing I know, if I go to Amazon, there's an advertisement for it. If I go to another site, there's an advertisement. It seems like, how did everybody know that I was looking for this specific 18-volt Milwaukee cordless tool?
Well, again, that's the holy grail of advertising. They want to present you with advertisements that are meaningful to you.
And it sure was. It sure was.
And I mean, that's what advertisers are really striving for. And you see that now in companies like Facebook that are trying to integrate all aspects of your life to try to present you with a unified view of the Internet that's customized for you. And that's what advertisers are willing to pay for, to get that targeted presentation to you. But
do you have concerns about the level of information that we are revealing to others about ourselves on Facebook?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you're a privacy. You have privacy concerns, as do the rest of us here at USA Prepares. So, I don't know how to ask you this. I guess just straight on. A lot of us believe that Facebook is a tool of the government to find out more about us, and some of us are just not aware enough to say, I don't think I don't want to put my schedule on Facebook. I don't want people to know, hey, I just left for work. I'm eating a burger at McDonald's or whatever I'm doing. I mean, I don't understand why people even put that on there. But is it a tool to spy on us?
Oh, wow. That's a difficult question to answer. I think that it wasn't intended as such, but it certainly has become an avenue that can be explored by not only government agencies but individuals for the monitoring of behavior. I mean, there was an outcry recently where, in order to apply for a job, they were asking for your Facebook password. I mean, that goes beyond. You shouldn't ever have to disclose personal information like that when you're applying for a job. But on the same token, the people who are doing the hiring want to understand more about you, and Facebook seems to be a place where people are opening their souls, if you will.
Right. And I imagine that I was talking to one of our instructors last night. There's not a single bank that would want to be associated with usaprepares.com. And I know why. Because we talk about the Federal Reserve. So they don't want to be associated with us. So I think what we're saying is that if people decide they're going to vent or air their views, it can come back and bite them. It can ruin their chances for that promotion.
That's right. And understanding that once you publish anything on the internet, it's there forever, is something that is foreign to many people. They don't understand that you can't delete a post after you've made it. It's archived somewhere. And that, when you expose your personal information like that voluntarily, what can you do to undo it? And there's not much.
Right, and also unflattering pictures, uncomplimentary pictures. It's just, the internet is an indexed research tool for worldwide browsing. Who writes these programs that we'll call it malware? Who says, hey, I got a great idea. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to spend my time doing this. Who would do that?
You ask such good questions. I mean, that's the root of the issue here, right?
Yeah. Dave Rand, he's with Trend Micro. Dave Rand is a founder of many companies. We'll tell you a little bit more about who Dave Rand is. I think we're going to have some fun. And, computer security, it's serious. It really is serious. It could take down our country. We'll see in a few minutes how that could happen. We'll be right back. Dave Rand is with us. And Dave Rand has been a key contributor to the Internet Engineering Task Force since 1991. Dave, we're talking about computer security, and could it take down our country if it were pierced at the right levels?
Of course, but we were talking about just who writes the malware and who's actually involved in all of this, Back in the first days of viruses, it was written as a kind of a capture the flag or a proof that you were elite or that you were cool, in the computing world, to be able to write software that could infect other computers or take them over. I mean, that was the goal. It wasn't malicious at all. I mean, there was a certain level of maliciousness about it, but it was never designed to cause damage. And that changed over the years, and as people got more aware, I guess, of computers and viruses, this became more of a malicious approach where they were looking to destroy information. And that existed up until, probably about 5 or 10 years ago, when the rules changed. And they figured out that there was money to be made by looking at these computers and by taking them over. And that's when the switch got turned. Instead of
let me ask you that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. How is money to be made by infecting these computers?
There's 101 different ways. One of the ones that I thought was the most interesting, though, was a piece of malware that went and looked for press releases Press releases? I mean, really? What possible use could a press release have, right? Well, it turns out that they were looking for press releases that hadn't been transmitted to the wire yet, the day before kind of thing. And then they were trading stock based on that.
Yeah, I saw that firsthand. Have you ever met Bert Bertonis? His name is Jim Bertonis. I've been calling him Bert Bertonis for 30 years. Have you met him in person?
No, I've never met him, no.
But you know of him?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me share an interesting story with you about that. Back in 1980, he and I were in the conference room of a company, and April was coming up, April 1st, April Fool's Day. So this was, let's say, 30 days before that, and this was before the Internet. And so we conjured up a press release, literally, and we mailed it out. We put it in first-class envelopes on our company letterhead, and we sent this press release out. And it talked about how we invented this technology called the TX bus. And we sent it out from Silicon Valley, California. We sent it to the New York Times, the Washington Post, Popular Science, Popular Mechanics, all the publications who would be interested in technology. And it alluded, it never really said exactly what it was, but basically you could, as you read this, it talked about how it was installed in an operating room. Surgeons were involved in this, and it was implanted, and it sounded like you'd plug this device, a signal, electrical signal, into your body through this device, and you could become a character in a movie. And this was in 1980. So we sent this thing out for immediate release on April 1st as a joke. Okay? Well, it got picked up, and people wanted to invest in our company. They thought the three of us, three guys in the loft of a building, renting a small portion of a big building, so people thought we were really something. And we're just three guys, three kids in this loft. Well, people wanted to invest in it because they thought they had inside information. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So that is, when you're talking about press releases, I thought, yeah, but we never accepted any investment funds as a result of it, but it actually did happen. And 10 years later, there was a publication in Silicon Valley talking about great claims that failed to materialize, and we were number 2. Apple took first place. Apple took first place with the Apple Newton. But interesting,
Sure, but that's one way to make money with malware, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Things have changed since even then.
Dave Rand, Vin Finelli, we are talking about computer security, and I have a whole bunch of questions. Where are we vulnerable? What do we do about it? What do we need to know? What do we need to pay attention to? How do we update? How do we protect? We'll be right back. We're talking about computer security with Dave Rand, and Dave Rand is with Trend Micro. And Dave, I was thinking, as we were talking about the press releases, and wow, I guess some people have a lot of time to think about these things and find ways to make money with malware and spyware. Well, I was thinking about, as you were saying that, I was thinking about years ago, if someone wanted to tap a telephone, okay, a man would climb up a pole. I'm talking about like the 1950s, maybe the 1960s. A man would be on the telephone pole. He'd climb up there. He would hook up some equipment, or he would tap into the wires. But that's not the case anymore. You don't have to go there. You can do all of these things remotely from almost anywhere, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so the people that write these, can you give us another example of why or how someone can make money? The press release is absolutely brilliant. There's no question about it. That's at a pretty high level. That's almost like being in the government, where you say, "Hey, we're going to be buying a whole bunch of new tanks," and then you can tell your friends that they ought to buy stock in the company that makes the tanks. But
sure, that's bits of inside information. But there's lots of other ways that they're making money now. I mean, one of the ones that is even unusual and probably directly related to your audience is alternative currencies.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's on my list.
Yeah, so alternative currencies is, for example, Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a cryptocurrency, and it requires computing resources to generate a Bitcoin. And it's a very compute-intensive process. Well, what some of the malware authors are doing is co-opting your computer and putting it together with a bunch of other computers, and they're generating currency directly, using your power and your computing resources.
So this is counterfeiting to...
Not counterfeiting. Not counterfeiting. It's generating.
Well, it's okay. Well, isn't that similar?
No, it's not. And I could
help me understand. Help me understand how, if we are generating currency, now we're talking about currency that with the Bitcoin that would be inflationary because we'd be just generating it out of electrons.
Kind of, except it requires an enormous amount of computing resources. For example, today it takes about 5,000 computers 2 weeks to generate 50 Bitcoins.
Ah.
Okay, and the problem, the cryptocurrency authors, I mean, they did a really good job on this. As time progresses, you know that computing resources become more powerful and there's more of them, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Well, the cryptocurrency automatically adjusts for that, and every time you generate a Bitcoin, it gets a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course, well, back in 2010, for example, one computer could generate 50 Bitcoins in a day. Now it takes 5,000 computers a couple weeks. And the next time they increase the complexity, it'll take those same 5,000 computers probably 2 months to generate 50 Bitcoins. And there's a fixed number of Bitcoins that can ever exist. So, I mean, they really thought about this. But anyway, back to the issue. These malware authors have co-opted your computer to generate Bitcoins on their behalf. So now they have a huge network, an army of computers at their disposal. And that's what we call a botnet.
A botnet?
Right. And that's basically a network of compromised computers that can be used for multiple purposes at the author's whim. And they can rent these botnets out. For example, I mean, the spam that everyone gets, that's coming from compromised computers around the world.
So is this kind of like what SETI did, the search for extraterrestrial?
Good example. Yeah.
Where they I know Art Bell was involved in helping SETI get involved for good purposes to network free resources that you might have on your computers, millions of computers worldwide, to do some processing, each one doing a little bit of processing. So that's kind of what you're talking about with the botnet, yes?
That's exactly right, except instead of being a voluntary task like it was with SETI, it's involuntary. You didn't mean to install the malware. You didn't try to install it. It just happened. And once they install the malware on your computer, instead of trying to destroy your computer, they're going to use that resource as long as they can.
Which is the on the other end of the spectrum from the viruses and from from the destructive purposes. Absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's changed in the last 10 years, from being a destructive force to being trying to keep your computer running as optimally as possible, yet stealing your resources or stealing your information, or both.
In Philadelphia, some notebook computers were passed out to students. The cameras were turned on, and the school district was spying on what the activities that were going on in the homes. They had the audio and they had the video. All the student had to do was power up the computer, lift up the cover of the screen, and there it was for everybody to see, or for the school system to see what was going on in those homes. Is that a concern that we should have, those of us who have cameras on our notebooks?
Well, in fact, one of the ways that the malware authors make money is that they do exactly that, except they try to target young women for some reason. And they sell these videos of these young women in their natural environment, so to speak, on the internet. And by using that, as and we're not talking about 2 or 3, they're compromising tens of thousands of computers, and they might get 150 hours of video, of which they'll trim down to the most important 15 minutes.
A husband, a fiance, a boyfriend would absolutely be livid and angry and want to lash out. Now, and that's assuming you knew who to lash out against. We don't know, do we? We can't find these people, can we?
Well, sure, and that's part of the problem. I mean, you're familiar with the $45 million heist that occurred recently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So now they're trying to track those people down. They're scattered across the world, and that's just one example of computer intrusions, affecting the society. We've got all of these new ways that these malware authors are making money by extracting information and then using that information in various ways.
Dave Rand, what is your biggest concern about computing today?
Well, it's really more complex than that, because it's not just about computing. It's about how we're using this network that has been created, the internet, right? It's such a powerful force, and it's been used for such good things. But it's also the power of destruction as well. So how do you balance that?
Well, here's why I'm asking that question. I was thinking about a guy who is no longer at a radio station. I was there yesterday, and what he did was he recorded, the temperature is 68 degrees, 69 degrees, the temperature is 70 degrees, the temperature is 71, and he did all these recordings, and then what happens is there's a computer control system that reads the outside temperature, and then it goes and grabs that file with the temperature is 70 degrees. Well, it grabs that and it plays that. Now, if something went wrong and it grabbed let's say the sensor was wrong, it could report the wrong information automatically over and over and over forever.
Sure.
Well, and that's, so what I'm saying is we didn't used to have the potential for failure at such a fast level, unassisted, programmed. Now we have nuclear power generation that's run by computers, and we hopefully have some guy who's awake long enough to read the screen or hear the alarm and do the right thing should a failure actually be detected and monitored, detected, and alerted the humans. Well, that is a concern to me, because maybe we are so dependent on these systems that we are removed from what's really happening.
We are dependent on these systems. There's no question about that, and for good reason. A computer can watch something, watch a dial, watch a temperature, watch a voltage, every millisecond for years and not get tired of it. Right? A human just can't. So we need computers. We need these resources. At the same time, we need to understand that these are vulnerable resources, and we need to protect them. You illustrate nuclear power plants. I mean, that's a good example, because we've got SCADA systems and we've got control systems that deal with all of these things, and it's important that we have them. At the same time, we need to understand their limitations, and we need to monitor them. That is the critical issue with computing. You can't just put a computer in and forget about it. You got to keep an eye on it. And this goes for your home computer, too.
Well, let's talk about that, because many of us have personal computers, Windows-type operating environments, and when we do, we are more vulnerable to malware, if you will, viruses, than if we have Apples. Isn't that correct?
That's by and large correct. If you look at the compromises which have occurred over the last years, the vast majority have been on Windows. And when an Apple product has been involved, it's usually been a third-party application that has been compromised, not the intrinsic operating system.
So is that because of just the sheer numbers? So if someone were going to create malware, he or she would say, you know what, there are more PC operating systems out there, more Windows, so let's just write it for Windows. Is that the reason, or does Apple have a higher level of security built in?
That's a difficult question to answer because, as you know, the market penetration on Apple products have become higher of late. However, going back 10 years ago, of course you'd write for Windows because that was really the only thing out there. But there's something else that they do on Apple as well that really helps.
Well, let's talk about that, and then let's talk about some of these vulnerabilities and what do we do about them. Dave Rand, Trend Micro. We're learning about computer security, what we need to know about it, and we're going to learn how to protect ourselves. When we come back, we've got about an hour and 12 minutes remaining in this broadcast classroom. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USAPrepares.com. Dave Rand is with us, and we're talking about computer security. We're talking about computer threats. Dave Rand is with Trend Micro. Dave, as you look at the internet from your bird's eye view, how much of our commerce would you say is based on the internet? And I know this number is really not determinable precisely, but do you have a feel for how much as a percentage of all commerce in the United States would be driven or powered or empowered or made possible through the internet?
I don't think that there's any part of the commerce in the U.S. that is not part of the internet now. I mean, it's used in everything from gas stations to trucking to monitoring systems, you name it. So I don't think that there's any part that isn't dependent on it now.
Yeah, so we're talking real time. As a matter of fact, Dave, my credit card was shut down. A computer algorithm looked at my credit card and they said, here's a charge that Vinny doesn't normally have. And it was for $3.05. It was to a company in Luxembourg. It was literally Skype. And I paid $2.99 for 1 month's worth of Skype plus tax. The credit card processing company saw that and said, that looks like a fraudulent transaction, and shut my credit card down. And because of that, the chain reaction was unbelievable. I couldn't buy gas. We have a meetup every Monday night at Ziggy's restaurant in Springfield, Missouri, where I host seminars, and listeners come, and like 110 people come every Monday night. I couldn't pay my dinner bill. I mean, just my meal. I couldn't pay that. I couldn't tip the waitress. And then my e-commerce component of my website got shut down. I mean, it was just a cascade of events, all because some algorithm said $3.05. That's not like Vinny. He doesn't normally do that. So I'm very concerned for all of us who are dependent on those pieces of plastic that we call credit cards, debit cards, for purchasing whatever we think we might need.
Right. And it's more than that. We've got a whole situation where these automated monitoring systems are looking at our behavior, not only just in credit cards, but in lots of parts of our life to try to better understand what we do. And we talked about that earlier with targeted advertising. Yeah. That's yet another application of this.
And do you have any moral concerns about any of this?
Oh, yeah, I do. But the thing is, by and large, this does help people. If you're going out and looking for a car, for example, it's better that you see targeted advertisements that tell you the information that you want to know. Now, the corollary of that is, well, of course you can look it up yourself, or go down to the car dealership and do it. But that's the old way of doing things. and to get the information delivered to you, because there's so much new information out there, to get that information delivered to you in a manageable form is important too. So there's a balance. Have we reached the balance point yet? No, we don't know how this is all going to play out. And we're going to figure that out over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Right? We don't have the skill set to be able to do this. But at the same time, you know, your credit card experience is showing you the other side of the coin. Mm-hmm. They're trying to gather your behavior and to say, hey, what are you doing buying something in Luxembourg? You know, come on, yeah. you never buy anything from there. So again, is that wrong? You know, I had a similar experience where I had a credit card transaction that was from the UK.
I'll tell you what, Dave, hold that thought. Dave Rand, Trend Micro. We're talking about computing. We're talking about the internet. And when we come back on the other side of the top of the hour news and commercials, I'd like to know what his thoughts about the stability of the internet and the on-off switch that Barack Obama wants to have on the internet. What are his thoughts about that? We'll be right back. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USAPrepares.com. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. I just got off the phone with Joel Johnson. He is in Moore, Oklahoma, and or just outside Moore, Oklahoma, and he was there last night. He was right in the path of the destruction. He's going to be with us at 3 o'clock this afternoon on KWTO. You can listen live. Just go to USAPrepares.com, click on Listen Live, and you'll be able to hear that special report with Joel Johnson, USAPrepares.com instructor. You've met him. You've seen him at all of our expos. You've seen him at the meetups. And he's been on the radio with us many times. By the way, he is a crisis intervention counselor. He's one of those guys that volunteers to be on the phone when someone wants to hurt themselves or commit suicide or has a crisis in their family or personally. He's the guy that you talk to. He volunteers to do that. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you don't say to someone who has just lost a child in elementary school to drowning as a result of a tornado. We're going to talk about that. And he is on the ground. With us right now, Dave Rand, Trend Micro. And we've been talking about how much of our commerce is based on the internet, and it's all impacted. It's all impacted by the internet. Yeah. Dave, as we look at the future, and let's say the future, we define that as the next couple of years, do you feel that the internet is going to be continue to be stable, or do you have some concerns about that?
Well, a lot of companies are trying to figure that out at the moment. Government regulations, not just in the U.S. but worldwide, are starting to change how the internet is going to work. And in particular, you know, different countries have different ideas of what is acceptable speech and what isn't. And they want to impose those views. And we're not talking just, backwoods countries. We're talking even places like Germany that have specific regulations on what they permit on the internet. How does that work when you've got a worldwide enterprise? How does that work when you in Germany are trying to access a website in the U.S. or in Korea, for that matter? How we work this out and how the internet is going to evolve and how society is going to evolve has got to change, because we need to understand how to deal with a worldwide economy, a worldwide environment that just hasn't been present in the past.
And are we talking about because of the impact of bad behavior on the internet? Is that what we're talking about? That
not just bad behavior, but also undesirable behavior, and where undesirable is defined in the eyes of the beholder, you know?
Sure.
So what is appropriate, what isn't? I mean, in the U.S. here, for example, we've got very good anti-child porn laws. In other countries, they're not so stringent. Is that something we really want in the U.S.? Those are hard questions, right? and censorship is a really delicate issue, and we don't understand how to do that on a worldwide basis yet.
Yeah, and as a libertarian, you know, of course, I don't approve of bad behavior, but as a libertarian, I think, you know, less regulation is better. As a matter of fact, Dave Rand, one of the things that Congress keeps talking about, there's nothing that those guys don't want to tax, and this is just one more thing they want to tax. They want to tax all transactions to companies that sell over $1 million in gross revenues on the internet. So here we get you know, some small company, and you've started a bunch of companies, and you know how difficult it is and how many obstacles we have. It's just one more.
Sure, but again, at the same time, dealing with just the U.S. government is one thing. But when you're talking about a world economy, and that's what the internet is, how do you comply with the laws in 150 or 200 different countries simultaneously?
Right. Right. It's got to be
anyone
impossible.
Even know? You know.
Right. Well, let's talk about Barack Obama had raised the point that the government wants, and maybe they even think that they deserve an on-off switch for the internet. Is that possible right now, that we could have an on-off switch for the internet that could be activated at a moment's notice? Do we have that right now?
I'm gonna be really careful in answering this question, because I did create one of the largest networks in the world myself, so I'm aware of perhaps more than I should. It is possible to do that. However, the internet was designed specifically to I'm going to use a quotation here, to route around damage. Mm-hmm. So the implication there is, if you disconnect a link, the internet will find a way to get the information from one point to another point. Mm-hmm. So to disconnect the internet is going to require coordinated activities across several hundred different vendors simultaneously. Can it be done? Yeah, sure, it can be done. Should it be done? Ooh, that's a hard question.
Well, now let's say it were done. Would you see, if we had the capability, and let's say it was as simple as walking over, putting a key into the internet switch and just turning that key, okay, and now it's off. Do you see any really serious potential damage that could happen within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a half hour, an hour from just doing that right now, if someone had the power to do it?
Of course, because when you turn off the internet, you turn off a lot more than you think.
That's what I'm asking. That's exactly
what I'm asking. For example, I mean, most of the telephone calls that we have today, including the one that we're on right now, I mean, that is carried over the internet. Credit card transactions, processing, routing information, even to the point where we've got even radar imaging, which is going over the internet as well. I mean, it's a major deal. So how do we differentiate what is good traffic and what is bad traffic? Well, this is really the whole focus of what we've been working on for the last few years. We don't have the answers yet. Understand that. There's no way we have the answers. But we're starting to figure out what is appropriate and what is inappropriate, and how we can limit the damage that occurs. Now, the off switch for the internet really is focused on what happens if there's a cyber attack. And there is every single day. Every day there's an attack. On Friday, I got a call from my friend. He runs a major website, and he says, "There's something unusual going on. Can you give me a hand?" And we looked into it, and we found out that his website was targeted as part of a botnet, but not deliberately. It wasn't designed to cause damage. It was designed to try to confuse the people that were analyzing the botnet into thinking that he might have had something involved to do with his botnet. And over the course of the next 72 hours, he had more than 750,000 compromised computers talking to his website.
Wow.
So these are complex and tricky issues that we don't understand yet because the rules are so different than anything we've been exposed to in the past. We're going to have to work this out over time, and that's going to require cooperation. It's going to require negotiation. It's going to require technical understanding that is beyond the lawmakers' capabilities today. And that is an important thing to understand. Although Al Gore may have invented the Internet, I don't believe that there's very many politicians that truly understand the ramifications of what they're considering.
Well, you're absolutely right. And we see that all the time at usaprepares.com. We talk about who are these guys and why don't they know, and why are they writing laws that they don't understand. As a matter of fact, we even, I'll see if I can find it. We even wrote something that we challenged our government. Oh, geez. I'll read it to you in a couple of minutes when I find it. But as we look at the amount of traffic that we have on the internet, the telephone calls, the credit card transactions, the radar imaging, are we talking about planes landing? Are we talking about that?
Well, sure, that's part of it. But how we communicate as a society is based on the internet now, and from phone calls to even radio. Is carried over the internet today. We have connections between police stations which are carried over the internet. There's so much traffic on the internet, and there's good reason for that. There's economies of scale that just aren't present in traditional leased line activity, which is how we did it. In the 80s and 90s, we connected a link, a telephone line, if you will, from point to point. Well, we don't do that anymore.
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, this broadcast, right this very second, is connected over the internet. We have equipment. I'm in a studio in the Ozark Mountains. The radio network is in Minnesota, and we're using codecs to communicate over the internet to connect. And I'm not the only guy. I believe that some of the other broadcasters, the household names that we all recognize, I believe they do exactly the same thing, and they are subject to the internet failing. As a matter of fact, I have been disconnected, I would say at least 20 times since I've been on the air, through mysterious disconnections on the internet. Does that seem possible to you?
Of course, yeah, that happens.
Yeah. Let me read this challenge that I issued to Missouri lawmakers, and it says that I challenge Vincent Finelli, usaprepares.com, challenge to Missouri lawmakers to introduce and discuss the following law. Any Missouri state representative who votes for any bill to become law without fully reading every word of the bill and without understanding every word of the bill is guilty of violating the public trust and will be charged with a felony requiring imprisonment for not less than 10 years. That's my challenge to Missouri, actually all governments. Dave Rand's with us, Trend Micro. We'll be right back. Dave Rand is with us, and during the break, my computer popped up a message, and it wanted me to update my firewall. And I had a choice. I could click Update Now, or I could update, remind me in 1, 5, 30, or 60 days. Dave, it seems that, generally speaking, the more frequently I update software, the more complex my computer gets, the more offers, the more advertisements I get. Am I just imagining that, or is that true?
That's a difficult question because it depends on the software that you have installed, of course. But the reality is updating your computer is something you should do all the time. You should keep your software up to date because that's your best defense, bar none. Keeping it on top of the current patches is important to understand what's really happening there. When you update your computer, and we're talking the operating system or your applications, you're doing that to both increase the security because they probably detected a vulnerability or a vulnerability has been reported to them. And that act of updating is going to protect you against that.
Okay.
The second thing it does is it keeps you on the current path, which is you're not going to be divergent from the rest of the users of that software. And those divergent users, those people who don't update, are the ones who are the most vulnerable.
Okay. Let's talk about defense strategies. How do we defend ourselves from these computer threats? What do you recommend that we do, and why?
Okay, back in the early days of threat mitigation, we said, well, that's easy. You just build a firewall, and there you go. Well, that hasn't been true for so many years. You can't build a single product or a single thing or install a magic box that will protect you. You have to understand behavior, and it's just like protecting your own home or your own business or your own environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't have just a single point of defense. You have to do what's called defense in depth, which is where you're looking at all kinds of different threats. Just to give you an example, everyone's aware of threats on the internet. Okay, don't go to bad websites, and if something offers to install on your computer, well, don't let it, right? Unless you know what it is. That's obvious and sensible advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's been several cases now where we've seen brand new products, and we were talking buy it at Walmart, unwrap it, and plug it into your computer. These products are pre-infected at the factory with malware on them. And one of the classic cases was some picture frames. This is where you load your digital images onto a device, and it displays them in a rotating fashion, shows you different pictures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very common, very stock item, but yet as soon as you plug that into your computer was owned. And this was from the factory. Now, was a factory worker paid to install that malware on outgoing devices, or was it part of a larger conspiracy? We're never going to find out. Right? Not ever.
Right.
But these things really do happen every day. And the threats are real and are out there. So you have to be aware. Don't just protect one thing. Think about what's coming into your environment. What are you plugging into your computer? Where did you get it from? How do you know it's safe?
Yeah, and I don't know if there are any guarantees. I don't know if you look at the big box stores that work on computers. I mean, we don't know. We really don't know who is doing what, and we're turning over a window into our lives when we bring our computer to somebody for repair, upgrade, and maintenance. We really are.
Sure, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the vast majority of the computer repair shops are reputable.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
These guys work hard, and they've got a tough job, and they're trying to help you out, right? They're not there to hurt you.
No, I agree. Violently. I agree. And I'm thinking of one of our instructors. His name is, we have two, John Dollarheight and Judy Dollarheight in Nixa. They own a computer store, and they go way above and beyond to make sure that their customers are protected. So when we come back, let's talk about what we need to do on our computers to make sure that we are protected. Dave Rand, Trend Micro. We'll be right back. Dave Rand's with us, Trend Micro. We're talking about the internet. We're talking about internet security. We're talking about personal computer security. Dave, I'd like to talk about what we should do at a personal level, and here's why I'm saying this. There's a story many, many years ago about a father who was in his own house with his young children. I think he had a 6-year-old daughter. She was doing cartwheels in the living room, and he was taking some digital pictures of her. And I guess she was either getting ready to go to bed or had just gotten up in the morning. She was in her nightgown, and she was doing this cartwheel, and when she was upside down, her nightgown slid downward. Gravity pulled it down. He happened to snap the picture along with a whole bunch of other pictures. Has the the memory stick developed at the big box store. Next thing you know, the cops are at his house. He's arrested for child pornography. And he didn't even see the pictures. He's just, snap, 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 snap. And so here we are, some do-gooder clerk is, hey, we've got a person who's involved in child pornography, and all he's actually doing is taking a picture of his child. I had a computer manufacturing business many years ago, and people would say, I want you to go through my entire computer and make sure everything's working right. And I go, no, I don't really want to do that. I really don't want to, I don't want to see what you've got on your computer. They go, no, it's okay. I want you to. And I go, no, I don't want to do it. And I really didn't want to do it. And, sometimes I was pressured into checking it out, and I saw some things I didn't want to see. I really did. And so what I'm saying is I think people need to take care of their own computers as best they can. If that being the case, what do you recommend that we do to protect ourselves from these hack attacks, from these threats, from these viruses, from the malware, from the spying that's going on?
Number one, keep your computer up to date. It's an easy thing to do, and it takes very little time in general, as long as you're on top of it. That's the number one thing. Know that your computer is up to date, because that is going to protect you against so many new threats. And that's what we see in the industry. When computers are compromised, they're almost always compromised because the user had failed to do the update.
Okay.
Second thing, put a firewall in, either as part of your operating system or as a separate device. It doesn't hurt, and it's a good thing to understand. If you are computer savvy, the best thing to do, though, is to look at the firewall logs. Look at what's happening on your computer. Is your computer waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and trying to talk to a website, and you're not there? That's important to understand. And that behavior of your computer, the anomalous behavior, is what's really going to clue you in. Now, that's only for the computer-savvy users. The normal users are never going to be able to either look at the logs or look at the behavior of their computer outside of the norm. And that's fine, too. Again, as long as you're keeping your computer up to date, you'll be safe, or at least safer than the people who are not. Make your computer a harder target. Is same as your house, Is
Sure.
it safer to keep your lights on outside or leave your house dark, What's the right choice?
Okay, so are you saying at this point that if we are not using our computer, turn the darn thing off, power it off?
Absolutely. There's no need to keep your computer on when you're not in front of it.
Okay, and I'm looking at my router right here in the studio. I can see the blinking lights and the activity and so forth. Should we disconnect our routers periodically and obtain a new IP address?
That doesn't help you.
Okay.
In no way does that help.
All right. What other activities should we be doing to help protect ourselves? We want to power them off if we're not using them. What about a piece of tape over the camera? Or is there a way? Seriously.
That's not a bad plan. Particularly if you're a young lady, you don't want to have that camera on unless you know it's going to be something you are participating in. And that's an important characteristic to do. Now, most cameras have a light on them that indicate when they're on. Mm-hmm. And have a look at that. Is the camera on when you're not using it? That's a good clue that there's something going on. Again, it's all about behavior, right? Is your computer getting slow for no reason? You're not running a particularly large program at the time, and all of a sudden your computer bogs down. Why? Those are questions you should ask. But monitoring your behavior is the most important thing. Install some good antivirus software and scan your computer frequently. That's always good advice.
Now, do you recommend the thorough scan, looking at every single file, in periods of
at least once a month? you should do that, because there are threats that are more complex and more insidious in nature that require a deeper scan.
Dave Rand, how would you address this? There's the old story about the road paving company, and they set up shop, and darn it, wouldn't you know it, when they pave the road, those loose pieces of gravel come up and they break windshields. So the road paving company sets up another business across their street, which is the auto glass company. So now they've got a business that they know they're going to send customers to, because when they pave the road, the windshields are going to get broken. There are those who have said over the years, and I've heard people say this, that I wonder if the people who would be best to write these programs other than the people who are in the business of solving the problem. How would you address that?
Well, you're exactly right. There is a whole class of malware called the fake EV software, the fake antivirus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you're greeted with a pop-up when you go to a certain website that says your computer's infected.
Right. There you go.
Well, how do they know?
Right.
Well, and the short answer is they don't. They're displaying that pop-up to anyone who goes to that website. And if you go ahead and click on that link and pay that $50 or whatever to download that software, you're going to find out that you are, in fact, out. So, yeah, and recently the FTC did shut down one of those companies that was involved in exactly that practice. And there was a good example of the government at work to help us. And, not everything the government does is bad. This was a long-standing investigation. Took them a long time to gather the evidence. But they seized assets, and they really brought the hammer down on this individual that was doing harm.
I'm so glad to hear that, because that's not often the case that we hear that these guys that we're spending so much money to employ actually have done things for our benefit, and that's great to hear. So let me ask you this: if a person wants to buy the tools to protect him or herself, are they better off? Well, are they better off buying it in a box, or are they better off downloading it? And how do they know where?
Today, most of the major companies do have an online presence, and downloading software from their website directly is safe and is a good thing to do. There's good protection in the software that makes sure that what you download is actually what they intended you to download. So it is a good way of doing it. Buying a box at the store is also a good choice. And for those people that are uncomfortable with downloading, or maybe that have an infection already, that's your best bet, because getting it on a CD or a DVD is going to make sure that the malware that might already be on your computer can't corrupt the original image.
Dave, I bought some software on the internet, and it said factory fresh, sealed, all that stuff. And I got the box, and the box, I remember the color of the corporate colors of this particular company that writes this software, and it looked just a quarter of a shade off. It was really close, but to me, I said, wait a minute, is this faded or is this a knockoff? Well, what I found out was it was in the box. Everything looked right, except it was pirated software that was shrink wrapped and all that. So now a lot of us are even skeptical of what's in the box. How can we tell? And by the way, I did call the company. I said, I want to know, is this pirated? And they go, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, is to call the company involved. If I go back a few years, in 2005, one of the major sources of spam on the internet was Turkey, the country Turkey.
Yeah.
And there's lots of reasons for that, but they have a really good infrastructure there on the internet. The engineers built a really class act internet, all fiber optics, high speed, lots of connectivity. But why was there so much spam coming from there? Well, it turned out that Turkey is one of those countries that is not, how should we say it, so rigorous on checking the provenance of their software. And you can go down on the corner shop and buy for $5 a DVD of 150 of your favorite programs for $5. So, unfortunately, these were coming pre-infected, and there was a large presence of malware in that country. That's what was causing all of the problems, and these computers were being owned and then being used to send spam. The ISP got involved and really did a great job on cleaning up the environment there and educating their customers. And just like you're doing today, the people who are listening to the show maybe don't understand that there's all these risks. They go down to the store, they buy software. Hey, it's software. It's in a box. What am I going to do, right?
Right.
But checking it is always a good choice. You're right. Ask the questions. Don't take everything at face value. And that goes for life.
It was interesting. The company that I called that had this software, it was not Trend Micro. It was not your company. I was really surprised at their reaction. Actually, I was very disappointed in their reaction. And I'll even say, no, I won't say who it is. But when I called them, they said, "Oh yeah, that's pirated software." And I said, "Well, what do I do?" And they said, "Well, I'll tell you what. For $190, we'll give you 10% off, and we'll sell you, the real deal." So I'd just been ripped off, and I thought, you know what? Why didn't they do better than that? Why didn't they say, we are really sorry. It's not their fault. It really isn't. Not my fault either. But 10% off? Why didn't they go 50% off? Interesting question. Dave Rand, I'm Vin Finelli. We're talking about computer viruses, we're talking about spyware, we're talking about malware, we're talking about threats. Dave Rand is with us, Trend Micro. Dave, I mentioned that I bought some pirated software unknowing to me, and I called the company because it just didn't look right. The box didn't look right, and they offered like a 10% discount, and I was kind of surprised at that. And it's not their fault. It was not, and they were ripped off. They were ripped off. I was ripped off. They lost. I lost. It was not a good situation, but that's a marketing opportunity to build customer loyalty. And they could have said, all of us are losers in this deal, but we want to, how about we sell to you a real copy for 50% off? Because I had already gotten beaten, the first time, and that would have been a neat thing for them to do. I just wanted to share that. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a good marketing opportunity. You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what the company should have done, is given you a better deal on software, or perhaps, maybe an update, extend your subscription another year kind of thing. Anything that would have cost them nothing, but would have won them a real loyal customer. And that's the right thing to do, always. Unfortunately, the people answering the phones often don't have the authority to do things like that. And that's, that's a management style decision that we can talk about at length.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. This broadcast, I think, is really important to begin opening the eyes of our class. And I'd like to let you know that this is available free as a podcast, the 2-hour broadcast with Dave Rand, Trend Micro. He's an innovator, he's an inventor, he's a founder of companies, and he's our newest USAPrepares.com senior instructor. And so if you just go to usaprepares.com, click on Listen to Vincent, GCN, you'll be able to download the podcast and share them with your friends and family. We have a caller from Tennessee, but I'd like to invite you to consider something, Dave. We have the Get Prepared Expo coming up in July, and if possible, I think it would be wonderful if we did a 1-hour teleseminar, if you're up for it, to share, this information with so many more people, because we are 100% dependent on the internet and our computers. So if you could just, put that in your potentials, for thought, being on it'd be a weekend 1-hour broadcast. We'd love to invite you to do that. So if you'd consider that, we'd appreciate it. Let's see. We've got Mike from Tennessee. Let me launch this. Mike from Tennessee, you're on with Dave Rand, Trend Micro.
Good morning, Vincent and Dave. I got a quick question for you. There's a lot of times when people buy a new computer and it comes preloaded with antivirus, and so they'll purchase antivirus software and then install it. Then there seems to be conflicts where the two antiviruses want to compete, and there's one school of thought that, well, you delete the original antivirus before you install anything new, and then there's another school of thought that you never leave your computer without some antivirus for any moment's time, and so you'll install the new, and then you'll go back and delete the old. Do you have an opinion on that? Because I know different softwares react differently with each other.
You're absolutely right, and they do react differently. But by and large, the right thing to do is to remove the old software first before installing the new software. And that has to do more with how the quarantine system works on various antivirus products. And in particular, when you've got an expired antivirus, and this is the really common, when you get a new computer, they give you a trial subscription for a month or something, and then it expires, and well, now you have to go and buy some antivirus software. The expired antivirus software is doing nothing to protect you. I mean, it's not current, it's not up to date, it's not going to be able to protect you, so removing it and having that narrow window of time is perfectly acceptable.
Do you have a recommendation on the best way to delete it to know it's completely deleted?
Use the manufacturer's uninstall program.
Thank you, sir.
Mike, thanks so much for the call. Dave Rand, fabulous class. I can't thank you enough. You have helped so many people worldwide with their computers. I'd like to do some in-depth broadcasts with you. We can talk about that off the air. Thanks so much for being with us. Dave Rand, Trend Micro. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.